Okay, so let's look at shelter location, and there might be more points that I haven't got here, but there are 5 main issues that I'm looking at this stage, and then a couple of points at the end. The first one's protection. Generally, you want a nice, protected, sheltered location in mountains, down in a valley for example, if you're on a coastline, off the coast, away from the coast, away from those exposed sites where you're going to get hit by winds and storms. So a nice sheltered, protected location. But you may well want open spaces nearby. Open, exposed spaces to get signalling, to get attention, put your signals out and so forth. If you hear an aeroplane or something, you may want to get out there quite quickly to get attention. So those two things are opposite and compete. A sheltered location, but you may want open spaces nearby. Now water, you want water as a resource, but you don't want to be right on creeks and rivers in case water levels rise, there's floods, there's rain upstream or in the mountains you're not even aware of. And even avoiding a small depression where the water can pool as a puddle. Even a 1-inch deep puddle under your shelter is going to ruin your day, ruin your shelter. And that's also where the raised timber platform's good. So you want water, but you want to avoid, and you want to avoid those really deep gullies and valleys and places like that where water's going to pool and run and flash flood and so forth. So your shelter location needs to be a nice well-drained site where the water drains away but doesn't flood and pool into where your shelter is. Trees, you may well want to be amongst trees. Trees and vegetation give quite good protection against rain, wind, storms and so forth. It's a resource, firewood, fuel for a fire and so forth. But you want to look up and look for dead trees, dead branches. You want to avoid dead fall and so forth. That might be hard to do. Even healthy trees, or trees that seem healthy, can fall down in a storm and so forth. So it might be a bit of luck, but you want to avoid obvious dangers and even animal dangers like bees, hornets' nests and bees' nests and so forth. You want to avoid. The sun, you may well want some sun in cold weather to get the warmth from the sun, but you want to avoid the sun when it's hot, so you want shade. And you want some basic skills. You want to at least work out where the sun's going to be throughout the day, in the morning, afternoon and so forth. When you set up your shelter, set up your opening to either face your shelter towards sun or away from sun if you want the sun or you want shade, whether it's hot or cold. And the last couple of points, bad weather and night time, you generally want to hunker down, stay in your shelter, and then when it's good weather, the next day at daybreak, that's when you get out to signal and to look for resources to survive and so forth. And don't forget that at night time and bad weather, rescuers and people generally won't be looking for you anyway. They're going to start when the weather clears up at the crack of dawn. That's when the rescuers get out, so you want to stay hunkered down in your shelter in bad weather, and at night time I believe that's what you need to do. And the last factor is the most controversial point, movement and navigation. If you want to move, actually look for help or look for civilization and so forth. The problem is, a shelter's going to take all day to make. Don't believe the fake TV shows where it takes 5 minutes. And if you move but you can't find civilization, what time do you want to start making a shelter? That's the problem. It can take all day, if not more than a day, to make a good shelter. So that's going to be the problem. I've got no answer for that, but generally, you know, the big factor about moving is making a shelter, and you need all day to make a shelter. So they're the 5 big factors that I'm looking at for shelter location, and a couple of other behavioural issues there. So that's shelter location.